Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about my very first Fujifilm camera, the X70, why I bought it, why I sold it already, and especially is it still a good and capable camera in 2026. And if you're planning to buy one or you already have one, stick to the end of the video because I'm sharing my 4 go-to film recipes that I use with this camera. But before we start, let's talk about what the Fujifilm X70 actually is. The Fujifilm X70 is a compact APS-C camera that Fujifilm released in the early 2016, which makes it 10 years old now. It features a 16 megapixel X-Trans 2 sensor, which is one of the older sensors, a fixed 18.5mm lens with 2.8 aperture, which is roughly a 28mm full frame equivalent. It was designed as an everyday carry camera, and that's actually what I bought it for. The X70 has been discontinued, so it's only available on second-hand markets right now. It launched at $699 in the US. I live in Germany, so I found one for $500, which is comparably cheap because I found lots of other offers, 600, 700, 800 euros. But to be completely honest, I wouldn't have bought it for 800 or above. I would say don't buy it if you find one above 600 euros. Or $600 because it is not worth it. You get way better cameras nowadays for a similar price, even from Fuji, but I get to that later, why I sold it and why I bought a different camera. I originally bought the camera because I wanted something that I could take everywhere, documenting my life, occasionally capturing BTS photos from my work, and I needed something small and quiet, but still capable of producing high quality images. But most importantly, I needed something that can shoot great colors straight out of the camera. But eventually I decided to sell it to move on to a newer Fujifilm, the XM5. Mainly because I wanted something similarly compact, but with a newer sensor and the flexibility of interchangeable lenses. So the first thing I did when I got the camera, I went out and shot some test photos, experimenting with all the film simulations, and also watched a bunch of YouTube videos to learn all about the different settings and further process my personal straight out of camera look. You have to keep in mind that you don't have all the newer film simulations with the X-Trans 2 sensor. The film simulations in the X70 are Provia Standard, which is marketed as a versatile default all-rounder with natural color reproduction. Then you have Velvia Vivid, high saturation, high contrast, Astia Soft, which has softer muted tones, not so contrasty, specifically designed for flattering skin tones in portraits. Then you have Classic Chrome, which is a fan favorite and often used for custom film recipes. On the official Fujifilm website, it is marketed as a documentary look with desaturated colors and hard shadows. Then you have Pro Negative Standard, softest contrast and neutral colors. Then you have Pro Negative High, which has slightly more contrast than the standard, used for portraits with slightly punchier lighting. Then you have the black and white film simulation in 4 different variations, and sepia. In the end, I mainly stuck with only 2 film simulations, Classic Chrome and Pro Negative Standard. And the reason why I went with Pro Negative Standard instead of Pro Negative High was because I found it a little bit more versatile to tweak. It has not as much contrast as the Pro Negative High, which means that I was able to dial in the contrast manually to my liking with a combination of the dynamic range setting, the highlight tones and the shadow tones. So the base idea was to have one go-to film recipe that I could use like 90% of the time, and then just when I want to switch it up or try something new or creative, I had several different film recipes saved up in the, I guess it's 10 different slots you have where you can save up different film recipes. I see a lot of Fujifilm creators out there loving the Classic Chrome film simulation, but when I tested it, I actually didn't like the tone change in some of the photos. You can see in this photo, for example, it is very subtle, but the sky becomes this teal blue color. The skin and midtones introduce more magenta, and especially the greens tended to shift a little bit more to a cooler green with a lot more blue in it. In an everyday situation, I prefer a more natural look, and the Pro Negative Standard profile did that for me. There's a creator, you might have heard of him, Reggie Ballesteros. Bro, if you see this, I hope I pronounce your name right. Anyway, he created this famous Reggie's Portra recipe. I did my own version of that recipe, which has the classic chrome film simulation as a base. And this became my second go-to recipe if I ever feel like the scene needs a little bit more character. Man, this camera grew on me. The camera is really so small and lightweight that I took it literally everywhere. Most of these photos would never have happened if it wasn't for this camera. I'm not saying that no other camera could do this. As a mainly Sony shooter, it is really refreshing to have these straight out of camera JPEGs. But you also have cameras like the Sony Cybershot RX series, the ZV-1, then there are the Ricoh GRs. I think Canon recently brought their own compact cameras out. And then you have smartphones becoming better and better with photography as well. But it is especially the straight off camera look and the film recipes that brought me to buy one. And it kept me interested to explore and shoot more stuff. And that's something that my phone can't do. One thing that really surprised me was how quiet this camera is. It turned out the X70 has something called a leaf shutter, which is a set of small blades inside the lens that snaps open and shuts almost silently. This really helped me to capture authentic moments without anyone even noticing I'm there. Another thing is the file size. I shoot both JPEGs and RAW simultaneously, but honestly, since I started using Fujifilm cameras, I barely even touch the RAW files anymore. The 16 megapixel sensor actually helps a lot with managing storage. I think we are all a bit spoiled lately when it comes to high megapixel counts. Even my iPhone 16 Pro shoots 48 megapixel by now. And sure, more megapixels give you more room to crop and edit in post, but they also bloat your overall file sizes. For an everyday carry camera that I only use for capturing memories, social media and everyday life, 16 megapixels is still more than enough. But even at only 16 megapixels, the photos look incredible. The image quality on this camera is definitely not to be underestimated. And now that I've been shooting with a newer sensor on the XM5 for a while, I can definitely affirm that these photos coming out of the X70 have a very special feel to them. Something that feels like it's missing on the newer, more perfect sensors of Fujifilm. The little imperfections of this camera almost feel intentional, to a point where I don't even mind if an image isn't technically sharp or if it has some motion blur or noise. And speaking of noise, the noise actually looks very natural on this sensor. It doesn't have that ugly, overly digital look. I mean, I already expected it to struggle in low light situations, but neither the high ISO nor the slow shutter speeds in some situations ruined the shots for me. If anything, it added character. But as much as I love the character of the X70, I eventually had to make a tough decision based on my actually workflow. The 60 megapixels just weren't enough for some of my professional work, plus the video capabilities of the X70 were pretty bad. It's limited to 1080p and just doesn't hold up to today's standards. I knew I wanted to keep the same compact, everyday carry feel, but with the luxury of interchangeable lenses. That's how I found the XM5. But the truth is, I couldn't afford to keep both, so I eventually sold the X70. The XM5 really combines everything I need right now. It is really small and compact, but has interchangeable lenses. I know it's marketed as a content creator camera, but I mostly shoot stills with it. But it's really nice to have the ability to shoot high quality video when the situation calls for it. And I even shot a client project with it recently because I needed to travel light, and this was a no-brainer. But there's one thing I kind of miss on the XM5 compared to the X70, and that is the screen. And I always thought I wanted this full articulating screen that goes out to the side. But after shooting from the hip with the X70, I realized how much faster and more natural it is to just tilt the screen up. When the screen is off the side, you aren't looking directly behind the lens anymore. You're looking always to the side, and it feels a little off, and I really miss the simple tilt screen. But yeah, you can't have everything. In the end, when I got a good offer for my X70 on eBay, I decided to let it go and fully commit to the XM5. and I think that was the right move. At the end of the day, I really do miss the X70 though. As much as I like the XM5, it's definitely a little bit chunkier, and as soon as I put on the bottom plate with the grip, it became a bit heavier than I'd like it to be. The X70 isn't a perfect camera by any means, but for the way I shoot, it was the perfect fit. It is small, it is lightweight, incredibly quiet. I was a little bit worried first that the 28mm equivalent would be a little too wide for my taste, but I actually ended up loving the focal length. And there's one thing I haven't mentioned yet, it's the minimal focus distance. You can go so close to your subjects, it is actually pretty crazy, and I loved it. Okay, so as promised, here are my 4 go-to recipes for the X70. The first one is my go-to recipe that I use 90% of the time for everyday life, and it uses the Pro Negative Standard film simulation as a base. Second one is a version of Reggie's Portra, and I tweaked it to fit a little bit more my style, and it uses the classic chrome film simulation. The third one was my go-to black and white recipe, and it uses the monochrome film simulation as its base. And the fourth one is a replication of the very popular 35mm film CineStill, and is using also the Pro Negative Standard film simulation. One thing to keep in mind though, when you're creating your own recipes, you can save almost all your settings except for your white balance shift. So if you have multiple recipes using the same white balance mode, let's say for example auto white balance, every white balance mode has a global shift setting. And I honestly don't know why they designed it that way, but it's definitely something you have to look out for. Well, one of my lights went off. I put a link for you to check out in the video description below if you want to download the free Lightroom presets that I provided for you for free. Not only for Fujifilm, you can use it for every camera brand. And also if you want to support me, consider to press the like button, follow the channel, and we see each other in the next one. Bye.